All right, well, to start off, I would like to introduce myself again. My name's Cameran Ledford, and I'm getting into the human services field. And
Okay.
I would just like to start off by thanking you for doing this interview. I really appreciate it.
No
It's a
problem.
big part of my grade, so I
No
really
problem.
appreciate it.
No problem.
Can we start off by you explaining some of your previous and current careers in the human services field?
Sure. So I graduated college in 2003, and then in 04 I started working at a nonprofit here in Jackson, the Life Enrichment Team. There I did like parenting skills and classes. I did some at the high school and then in home as contract work through a grant through the United Way. Here in Jackson with DFACS families. And then in 2006, I started working at DFACS, and I worked there until 2018. And then I left, and now I do insurance claims, and I'm a CASA volunteer, so a court appointed special advocate for children in foster care.
Oh, well, that's just awesome.
Yeah.
That's amazing how you've been in this service for so long.
Yes.
Since you have been in it so long, what have been some challenges that you have faced while working with some clients in the business?
The biggest challenge is probably substance abuse and mental health. Especially in our area, there is not a lot of services for
Mhm.
those types of issues. And finding providers to come to this area and work with families is an issue. So I would say that's probably one of the biggest is mental health and substance abuse.
Mhm. What do you think would be the root causes for these issues, like substance abuse and mental health issues?
Um, I think here, speaking like in our area, a lot of it
Mhm.
is generational. It is their parents, grandparents had substance abuse issues, and it's carried over to the parents, and then now it carries to the children. Like I can see um, people that I went to school with whose parents had substance abuse issues, and then I worked with people my age that I went to school with that had current substance abuse and mental health issues, and then now their children have those issues. So I think a lot of it is generational, and then just not having those services or an understanding of um, what all is needed to curb those issues.
Yeah. Other than with clients, what do you think would be the overall issue when you're dealing with this line of work?
Um, it is probably the amount of work. That's part of why I left DFACS is just the stress and strain of it. I did child abuse, neglect, and abuse investigations for most of my time at DFACS, and that's very stressful. Um, and I worked a lot. And so, I had to finally choose my family first because I was a workaholic. It's very easy to become
Yeah.
a workaholic.
So, in doing that, did you experience a lot of like lack of motivation and burnout because of it?
Yeah, I would say burnout
Yeah.
is a big one. Yeah.
What do you think was like the main reason you experienced like the burnout?
Um, I worked probably 60 hours would be a slow week. And then up from there because I'm a perfectionist. And then I wanted to make sure that my families, had what they needed. And so I tried to work too around their schedule and do my visits like in the evening so they wouldn't have to take off work, um, and things like that. So, and just the um, lack of support in the community, lack of
Mhm.
resources in the community, and trying to make sure that everyone has, what they need.
Yeah, that sounds very stressful.
Yeah.
Um, did you do anything to try to prevent the burnout or lack of motivation? Or was it
Um,
just kind of push through it?
it was just a push through. They would do some kind of like team building things or, give a gift card, that kind of thing. But, I loved all my families and my kids. So it was just trying to make sure they had what they needed.
Yeah, what did you seem to do when you were experiencing these issues?
Um, I would try to rely on my family. My husband was really good at the time about helping. My kids had a very good understanding of, what they were in it and they saw it. Like when I was on
Mhm.
call or stuff, they would sometimes have to go or sit at the police department while I was out. So, they saw that and understood the stress of it.
Well,
So,
I'm very glad that you had a support system
yes,
because that seems really tough.
yes, yes.
Um, what do you think that your program did to stay so vibrant and helpful during such economical challenges, like in the
Uh,
world?
so when I was at DFACS, we provided a lot of services. I saw them go to a lot of more in-home. When I left DFACS, they were trying to do more family-centered practices and working more family-centered, and not like it used to be removing children and things like that, really trying to find a way to keep kids in the home when it was safe and appropriate to do so. Um, as a CASA volunteer, we try to do a lot more support and work around with the families and really trying to look outside the box to help children and help families keep their kids safe.
Oh,
So,
well, that's good.
yeah.
Is that similar to other practices in this field, or is that something individual that your group does?
I think it's the same. I think there has been a shift in more recent years surrounding mental health and making sure that mental health needs are really met
Oh,
more so
well,
than in the past.
well, that's good.
Yes.
What would you want to change in your career to better it?
Um, I wish that there was more support for um, children and families around like mental health services and taking out that stigma there. I think if there was better pay and things for DFACS workers, that there would be more workers, there wouldn't be so short in the field, as well as being able to keep people long term too.
Would you want to have a role in the change, or would you just appreciate it happening?
Um, I mean, at this point, I would probably just want to um, be a supporter, but
Mhm.
part of that is because like my husband passed away in May of this year, so I don't have a lot of emotional energy to give. Um,
I'm so
so
sorry for your
yeah,
loss.
yeah. So I think in the past I would have been and maybe in the future a part of it. But right now, no.
Mhm. Well, I'm sorry to hear that.
Thank you.
Um, what would your goals for the future be for the human services field?
Mm, I would like to see more collaboration across all the service providers. That would be great if it could streamline and be easier for families to navigate. Um, I've never had to really use services before, but since my husband's passed away, I have had to, deal with Social Security and deal with other government agencies. And I can see the challenges that people face now on this side of it. And it is very tiring, it's aggravating, it's stressful. And I'm educated and can read and do all of those things. And I think as um, a family who may not read well or may not have the support or transportation or the financial resources to do all the going back and forth, I think it would be great if there was a way to streamline or make that easier to use for families. Would be great.
Since you've experienced the other side of the human services, what would you want to do in your work to help those who are in need?
Um, I think it'd be great if there was um, maybe some supports on how to navigate or I don't know, a handbook or something that
Yeah.
would tell people how to do the things. Like I know I'm having to deal with like victims compensation, which is a government program, and I turn in paperwork and then it's not the right paperwork and then I have to redo paperwork or they want this form or that form. And so if there was a way or for them to have their process written out so that it is easier to navigate, um, especially for people who may not read well, or because I know when I worked at DFACS, a lot of adults could not read, and I would try to read things out loud to them or help them fill out stuff. I think those services go underutilized because they don't want, they don't know how to do it, or they don't have the ability to follow through every step. And so there may be resources out there that people are not utilizing fully because
Mhm.
of that. So I think if there was a way for them to be able to tell like X, Y, and Z is what is needed, and maybe some supports on how to get those things, the forms or whatever that's needed, it would be better.
Yeah, that sounds like that would help out a lot of
Yes,
people.
yes.
Do you see any challenges across the board that has been affecting the human services organizations, such as poverty, the pandemic, or anything like that?
Yes, I know that like for example, my CASA family, um, it was a big thing during the pandemic, because like we could not see them face to face during the pandemic. So, and DFACS was not visiting at all face to face. We actually, as CASA volunteers, went back face to face before DFACS did. And so I think they weren't in the homes, they weren't able to closely monitor because they weren't seeing them. So I think that's an issue, which I think has gotten a little bit better now. They're back to seeing face to face for most of it, but that was a big deal. And like services dropped off, and visitation with siblings and families ended and or weren't as frequent because of the pandemic, which was an issue. Um, of course, poverty is always an issue across the board. Um, and so
Have you seen any ways any of these organizations have tried to adapt and better their techniques to adapt from these things?
I'm not so sure that DFACS did very well during that time. I wasn't working there during the pandemic, but I was working as a CASA volunteer and dealt with them, and it was a pain. But I know as a CASA, we tried to visit in person if the family was comfortable with it, sitting outside or, wearing a mask or whatever, just to maintain that bond with the children, or do face to face on the video, which I didn't really like. I didn't feel like that was beneficial, but
Yeah.
um, so I think that I know that CASA really tried to maintain that
Mhm.
bond in those services to the children to make sure that they were getting all that they needed and advocating for um, the children to have like counseling and things that they needed in the pandemic, even if it wasn't as easy to get for them.
Oh, well,
Like I
that
know I
sounds
had to
awesome.
really advocate for sibling visits during
Mhm.
the pandemic with the
I
kids.
know you talked earlier about some of your clients not being able to read. Have you seen any other types of diversity in clientele?
Um, I think I saw them not being able to read, and then English. I worked in Jasper County for a period of time at DFACS, and there's a lot of migrant workers there. So language was a big barrier, and then not having like legal documents to be able to get some services here because the parents may not be legal, so they couldn't get WIC, or there was a delay waiting on paperwork for them to get those services. Um, so that those are mainly what I have seen is the education or lack thereof. And then they don't see it as necessarily always a priority for their children because they are not educated. So the like going to school or doing homework is not always a priority, and that can cause that generational thing to continue.
When you come across events like that, do you try to inform them the importance of education, or do you just try to help them with what they need help with?
Um, Inform them of the importance of education and the kids going to school and doing their work. Some of it is that parents don't know how to do the homework themselves. So trying to get them to use Google or tutors at the school or let the kids stay in after school, those kinds of things. Churches that may do an after school program that can help them as well. So just helping them find those resources in the community.
Oh, well, that sounds nice.
Yes.
Helping them find
Yeah.
what they need.
Yeah.
Um, since you have been working in this service for so long, have you come across like any ethical dilemmas that you faced?
Um, we had one issue when I worked at DFAX with our director at the time. And we ended up having to have like state office level people come down and meet with us because she was asking us to, not tell all of the things in court. Um, and I would not do that. And my other coworkers would not. And so we had to do those types of meetings. And then she was not a director anymore. So, yeah.
Oh, well, that
Yeah. So
I'm
that
glad
was,
y'all came over that.
yes. So that was the biggest, like ethical thing. Like, I'm going to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So, in court. So,
hmm Is there any other way that you learned how to deal with dilemmas like that? Or
um,
any advice you would give someone who's entering the field?
I would say, like, I always told people that read the policy for whatever company that you're working for. So, like a DFAX, read the policy and follow the policy. You can't get in trouble if you're following their policy and guidelines. So, oh, there was another, like, when I worked at one office that I worked in, like, this man, one of the workers, left a baby who was positive for, I believe it was meth, if I remember correctly, in the home with the parent and did not do the policy referrals that needed to be done. And I was like, you have to follow policy. Like, I don't care what it that you have to follow the policy and do what the policy says. So,
Oh, wow,
really
that's
an ethical
just
issue, but just, you know, if you follow it and make the referrals and provide the services, then nobody can get onto you because you're doing what you're told to do or what you're expected to do.
mhm. Since you've gone through so many issues with these services, have you ever thought about starting over and not going into the field, or have you always wanted to do this?
Um, yeah, I am a social worker person at heart. I did leave DFAX to make more money, have more time with my family. But that's why I do CASA is so that I can still maintain that part of the field, um, and still be engaged with the safety and well-being of kids.
Mhm.
So
Well, that's just amazing,
yeah,
that that's something you're passionate about.
yeah.
Um, my last question would be, would you have any overall advice for someone who's going into human services?
It would be to um, take care of yourself. Number one, you can't give from an empty cup. So make sure that you're meeting your needs, your family's needs, taking time for yourself, um, and to enjoy it. The families are wonderful. They have their struggles and problems, and they may not live like you live um, or believe the way you believe, but each family is unique and they all have a positive quality if you can find it and build on that. It's there.
All right. Well, thank you again for taking the time to do this interview. I really appreciate it. Is there anything else you would like to say to someone going into this career?
No, can you? I just thought, can you see me or no?
Um, no, I cannot.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just
It's
saw that
okay.
it start my video. There. I was like looking at myself the whole time thinking that you could see me. I'm sorry.
It's okay. The main thing is just to hear your
Yeah.
opinions on your
Oh,
advice.
I was like, I don't think she can see me. So,
All right. Well, thank you.
no
I really
problem.
appreciate it.
You
I
have
hope
a
you have a great day.
thank you. Bye.
Bye.